Good evening. It's a good evening tonight. It's good to see everybody here. I am Lynette St. Clair. I am a lifelong resident of Wyoming, with the exception of a couple of years when I moved to Las Vegas right out of high school and did a short stint as a showgirl. I'm kidding. No, I did really go to Las Vegas, and I did actually learn a lot about myself during that short stint that I was there. But the most important thing that I learned was that as an Eastern Shoshone, I actually had relatives all over the United States. And that kind of got me interested in what I wanted to talk about today, because the long journey that I took was actually the road that has led me to different places in the world and has actually led me to be where I need to be, which is my position right now as a linguist and as a cultural preservationist and as a teacher and a mentor. So when we take the road, usually in Wyoming, of course, the road seems to be long and daunting. I mean, you know, one of the great things about living in Wyoming is you can drive for miles and miles and not see another car. But at the end of that road is your destination. Sometimes the destination can be a little bit grueling to get to. Sometimes we can go through different curves and different areas and bumpy roads, potholes. But just like any other road, just is the situation with life. We encounter a lot of different twists and turns throughout our lives, and one of the things about finding your power is knowing where you're going, for one thing, but also knowing where you come from. This is a picture of my grandmother, my Gagu, and she was very instrumental in really helping mold me into who I am today. It was through the experience that I shared with her as a young child where I learned how to speak my language, Eastern Shoshone. The other thing that was really significant about my relationship with my grandmother is that she taught me a lot of things culturally and traditionally. I come from a long line of powerful indigenous people. And I like to say that I come from a long line of indigenous women, because the women in my family have been leaders in their own way. My grandmother had the task of being a water carrier. And as we know of times of late, we're finding out more and more that water is life. And so how significant that was to find out that that was her role as a water woman was really, had a really large impact on my life. My grandmother, my Gagu, is the granddaughter of Chief Washakie, who is the last chief of the Eastern Shoshone people. So in essence, I'm a princess, if you will. So some people would say. But in fact, I really take my lineage serious, because there are a lot of people who really don't know where they come from. And I feel very powerful that I know where I come from. And it's a powerful thing to have to carry that with you, because we all know that Washakie was a great leader. He was a great warrior and a skilled negotiator. And so having that be part of where I come from has really made it even more of a reason for me to travel the road to where I am today. This is a picture of my mother. And to me, like with anybody else, your mothers epitomize the picture of power and courage. For me, my mother signifies courage and power in a different sense. When she was a young girl, she went with my grandmother to take care of an older gentleman in our family. And through that experience, she came down with a sickness. And when she was taken to the hospital, it was discovered that she had tuberculosis. She had contracted that from the older gentleman that they were taking care of. So she was taken from her home, from her loving environment, and put in a sanitarium or infirmary in South Dakota. She stayed there for months, not knowing if she was ever going to return to her family, to the reservation, to her homelands. And it was through the strength and courage of her connection to our Creator and to spirituality that she was able to overcome that through prayer. Plus, she prayed a lot, and in those prayers she asked to heal and to get better. Her prayers were answered when her uncle came and brought her nuanatso, or Indian medicine. He gave her a tea to drink, and she drank that. She started to feel a little bit better a couple of days later, and about a week later, she went back and had x-rays, and the doctors discovered that she was actually free of TB. The x-rays didn't show any signs of having tuberculosis. And so they released her to her uncle, and he brought her home. So when she returned home, of course, she kept that strong spiritual connection that she has. And through prayer and bravery and courage, she was able to, live out a full life and begin a family. That's where I came in. So I come from a large family. I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters and myself. And if you know, in an Indian community or Native communities, we are a very large extended family. And as I was speaking with one of the other speakers this evening, we were talking about how we are all related, how we all come from a culture. Every one of us come from a culture. But the bottom line is this, and my grandmother used to say this, "Damaoyandes and Nahwandes." We are all related in one way or another. And so I take those lessons of courage and bravery, and I was very fortunate to have grown up in a home, a large family where Shoshone was spoken constantly. I didn't feel at the time that it was a unique situation because I felt that everybody in our Shoshone community spoke Shoshone. It was only until 20 years ago that I realized that it was actually a very unique situation. The language that I speak, my Shoshone language, is actually on the decline. And that has really spurred me into action and has made it a mission for me to try and accomplish what many other people prior to me have tried to do. And that is maintain our language and keep it alive for 7 generations. So I was talking about the lessons of courage and bravery because it really had an impact on me as I was trying to bring forward my mission of language revitalization and trying to continue language instruction. And I came up against some brick walls, not only from the places where I tried to instruct in language, but from my own community. There were people who were saying that the language should be taught at the home, which I agree it should be. But in most cases, there's not very many language speakers. And so, in essence, it really makes sense to do it there at the school where you have the children constantly. So as I talk about that roadblock, I also met with roadblocks because we don't have a universal dictionary. And so Shoshone is really an oral language, or you learn it through hearing other people speak it, because there's no one way you can say it. And the reason is because we have many different dialects in our language. We come from the Uto-Aztecan language family, which is a very large language family. We have relatives, like I said earlier, in Nevada. We have relatives in California, in Utah, and we have them all over because our language family is huge. We have relatives in Oklahoma, the Comanches. our Udo Aztec and language speakers as well. And so the difficult task that I had was trying to make sure that even though we were instructing in Eastern Shoshone, we were honoring all of the dialects. Well then, like I said, the roadblocks that were presented to me came from within my own community. We had issues of lateral oppression, people who were afraid to teach their children because they were punished or their parents were punished when they were placed in boarding schools. And so they feared for their children. They didn't want their children to learn because they didn't want them to have to suffer the same consequence that they did. That was a huge, monumental task in trying to get everybody to agree that our language is important and they're not in danger of being hurt if they know it, because they have to know where they come from in order to know where they're going. And so taking that, I took on the task of becoming a teacher. And I tell you, if there's a teacher in the room, my heart goes out to you and God bless you. That is a very monumental task in itself. And I appreciate how teachers work with our kids every day and try and fine-tune them and put them out into the world. And that was what I tried to do. Using technology, because technology is what kids know best, I began to work with them in helping them create their own projects. By integrating Shoshone language into the projects that they did, they became more familiar with it, they become more adept to doing a lot of the projects that they had to do, and they really enjoyed the process. And so as the kids that I taught go forward, they're also teaching their children, and hopefully they'll continue to teach their children. I couldn't have done this, of course, if I didn't have the history with my own family who were fluent speakers, if I didn't have the love and encouragement of my own grandmother and my own mother and my own father. And I couldn't have done it if I didn't have achieved a lot of the things that I wanted to achieve. And I was able to do that through the support of my family, my two beautiful daughters and my wonderful husband and my mother, and all of my friends that supported me when I was going through the hard times. Because we all know, in order to get to cross that road to success, you also have the underlying issues of other things. It's not easy to go out and achieve your dreams or to accomplish your mission if you're weak. And so you have to use that negative energy and turn it into a positive, which is what I felt I had to do. And so I fast-tracked getting my education from an associate's degree to a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, all in a short time of 4 years, because I was on a mission. And I'm still on a mission today because I feel it's so important and it's critical right now that we've begun to make a little bit of progress, that we need to maintain that, but I also need more language warriors on my side. And so as I go forward, I want to thank my support group who were there for me, my family, my friends, everybody who was there to cheer me on and were in my corner. I appreciate that. And I take all of the positive and I move it forward, because that's what it's all about. It's about using negative energy and finding your power in that negative energy and pushing forward in a positive. I also want to say that it would be accomplished, a lot of the things that I had done, if I didn't have other people in my corner. And with the late Starweed Sr., he was a powerful force. He supported me in everything that we did with the language. He's always about language instruction for the children, and he was very significant in that. And the last person I wanted to thank about helping me along the way was my brother. If it wasn't for him, I would not have been able to carry forward. And I'll leave you with this story. So I was walking down the hall one day, and I encountered some criticism on some posters that I had created using our Shoshone language, and also using our core beliefs: honor, respect, courage. And when I heard the people talking about the way it was written and about that's not the way you're supposed to say it, and all of this other noise. I really had self-doubt. Am I really in the right place, and am I doing the right thing? And I left, and I went up to my office, and I remember putting my head in my hands, and I was on the verge of tears because it really broke my heart that other people didn't see the important task that I was trying to accomplish. And while I was there leaning on my desk, my coworker, who's holding the watermelon, came around the corner and said, just wanted to let you know that your brother was here today to see you. And I said, oh, okay, well, did he leave a message? And she said, well, no, the only thing he did was he left that. And she pointed at my keyboard, and on my keyboard, there was an eagle feather. And she said, he just told me, give this to my little sister. She's going to need this today. And so I took that, and every time I have a problem and I start to doubt myself and my mission, I take out my eagle feather, and I know the universe is right. Everything is good. And so it does take, there are negative energies out there that are trying to sway whatever mission you're on. But if you have faith and you have somebody powerful in your corner, you can move mountains. Thank you.